when we lose education, we would lose the future.
It's a beautiful thing when you said that we should not hear about refugees, but we should hear from refugees.
Be stronger than what I have gone through, and I don't allow these circumstances to be stronger than me.
Just hearing about how these people are in a circumstance where they have to be resilient, they have to be strong.
Yes, definitely.
And giving them that respect. So today we will be speaking to Muzoon, Syrian activist and refugee who is now resettled in the UK. She is the youngest Goodwill Ambassador to UNICEF and a champion for girls' education. And we at BRYYZ are so excited to chat with her today. Welcome, Muzoon.
Thank you so much. I am so glad to be here with you, and looking forward to your questions. And yeah, I hope everyone will like it, and we can inspire them a little bit.
For sure. Okay, so I know that you've had a long journey, fighting for girls' education where you're from and around the world. So what sparked this passion for educating young women?
Honestly, I really, I think to fight for others has become and grown more and more when I have become a refugee. When I was actually in the really difficult circumstances, I always believed in education. I always believed that education is a great tool to help myself, to help my community, to do something good for people around me. So when I have become like a refugee, I realized I have to raise my voice, not only for myself, but for others. I have to encourage them, because unfortunately, during the war, when the war started and when many people had to flee their homeland, they started to think, okay, now it is not a priority to go to school, because they have gone through a very difficult circumstances. That's why I felt I have to start to give them hope, to encourage them not to give up, and to believe that education is the only way to rebuild our homeland in the future. And we need everybody. So for example, if I only believe in education, it can adds a little bit to benefit my country, but we need everybody, every child who has an opportunity to go to school, and to believe in education, because when we work together, we can make like a greater impact.
Right. And you think originally education wasn't as emphasized and people were encouraging them to go in other directions?
It's actually like before the war, it was normal for everybody to go to school. Like we had schools accessible everywhere. We had a very strong like system of education in Syria. Everyone is aware about the importance of education. But unfortunately, when the war started, some people started to think education is not the priority for us to face these challenges. For example, in the camp, many families started to think like marriage is a priority more than education for girls. This could protect them. Like this is what some families think, but it is not the general understanding, and it is not to generalize about the whole community. But I think it is just because the impact of war. Some people thought we will be back to Syria very soon. They didn't know it will last for long. Until now, we didn't go back to Syria. So they thought it is for a short time. That's why they thought, okay, when I go back to Syria, I will send my kids. So my message to them was, we don't know when to go back to Syria. We don't know if like we will have access to education when we will back to Syria. So maybe it will be years, and that's indeed what happened. We didn't back until now. So these years, if those kids didn't go to school, it can affect them profoundly, and they lose like a huge or many years actually of their studies that they're learning. And yeah, that's what has encouraged me to fight more and more.
Right, so you saw it as a necessity for your community.
Yes, definitely, because indeed, like when we lose education, we would lose the future, and without educated generation, it would be a disaster in the future, because those kids who are educated, they can do something for their homeland, and even not only for their homeland, but also for themselves. They could prove to everybody that these challenges not stronger than them. And especially when you become a refugee, it is not your fault. Like, for example, when I had to flee my homeland, it wasn't like my mistake. So I don't deserve to lose my rights. I have to get my rights, especially my right of education, because like if I will lose my rights, I will suffer a lot in my life. And that's why I wanted everybody to feel like not to feel guilty about what has happened to them, and just to feel strong, even though they suffer, but they have to be stronger than the challenges they face.
Yes. Oh, wow. Amazing. So throughout this journey of, working with refugee camps and encouraging these values for them, did you have any setbacks along the way? Any transformative moments where you thought that maybe you were really making an impact, where you figured out, wow, this is working. I'm doing something important.
Mm-hmm. It all started actually at the beginning when I started my activism work. When I started to go from 10 to 10 to encourage girls and boys to go to school and to believe in education. I heard from many organizations like UNICEF, Save the Children at the time, who were working also on education and encouraging kids to go to school. Actually, they like told me, when you started your campaign, we have been successful in spreading awareness. Many kids went back to school. The numbers of those students who are now learning and studying, it becomes higher. So that has given me really a great feeling. And from that moment, I thought I'm doing really great job in the camp, and I'm really doing a positive impact, because they told me like statistics, like I didn't know, okay, I'm making really, those numbers are higher now. So that encouraged me a lot. But even from the beginning, before like hearing that, before knowing all the accomplishments that I have done, I didn't give up, even from the like negative feedback that I had from the community in the camp, because I was so young at the time. I was just 14 years old, and sometimes older people, maybe they don't hear from me like as a young person, and sometimes it is really hard to talk also to the girls themselves, to the boys. So I had positive feedback, but on the other hand, I also had a negative feedback from the people that I was talking to them about the importance of education. So they didn't make me actually give up, because I realized when I started this, I will face challenges, and as long as I believe education is something really important, it is really fundamental to a better life for all of us. So the negative responses from people has given me a stronger motivation to continue, and that's why I didn't give up until now, because I believe in education. I believe it is something really powerful and can help children everywhere.
For sure. That's amazing. Yeah, so why do you think there was such a resistance to it at first when you were trying to encourage education?
Like when you start to do something different, and nobody has done it before you, it seems weird. When you offer something new, you will have this resistance, and you will face the challenges, because nobody has told them this before. They didn't like hear from a young person before to give them awareness, for example, or to encourage them. Even sometimes if they believe in what you say, they just, because they have this like way of thinking, they don't want to listen to a younger person, for example. And you will have these challenges. That's why I didn't care about all that negative atmosphere, and I just had a clear goal. And until now I still fight for what I have started to fight for at the beginning.
Right. So you'd say, if you know that you're doing the right thing, accept the challenges, face them, move forward, and just keep your foundation strong. That's so inspiring.
Thank you. Yes, definitely, because if we don't believe in what we do, if we don't believe in our voices, we cannot make a difference. Sometimes we have great ideas, we have great initiatives. We really, like, if we work on these ideas, we can make a great impact. But the problem that we don't have the motivation that comes from our hearts. Like, indeed, if you do something and you will be criticized anyways, like, criticism doesn't mean what you do is not important. So the main point think you don't have to underestimate yourself. Like
Mhm.
as long as you give value to who you are, then other people will do. So for me in the camp, like I only had my voice.
Yeah.
I didn't have something else. Like, I was like everybody in the camp, even some people had a situation better than mine. Like, for example, but I believed in my voice. I used my voice, and that's what had a difference for myself.
Right.
So yes, anything that we do, even if it is small, it must get a value from us. And
Yeah.
if we give it a value, nobody can underestimate.
Amazing. What would you say is one of the clear examples where you saw the impact of education in your community?
Yes, of course. Like I had many, many stories. But for example, I remember in Zaatari camp,
Mhm.
there was a girl, she was around 16, 17 years old. She was going to get married. She didn't want actually to get married, but her family, they asked her to get married, and they thought like marriage is the best for her. They
Right.
didn't want her actually to continue studying.
Mhm.
So she came to me in one of the centers in the camp, and she told me, I want your help, I want your advice. So I told her, it is your family at the end, but ask them that if they really want the best for you, they have to listen to what you want, not
Mhm.
what they want for you.
Right.
Because as long as you want education, you have to tell them, you have to be strong, and just face them with your ideas, and tell them, I don't want to get married at the moment, I want to continue my studies. And I'm sure they can listen if you try to explain yourself. And she did so, and she actually persuaded them. And then she came to me and told me, yeah, I talked to my family, and now they are convinced with what I have said, and they don't want me to get married. And she continued with her studies. So I think this is one of the examples that I got really so happy when she
Yeah.
went back to school and continued with her studying.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I have viewers that live all over the world, and I think they would probably want to know what we can do from afar to help the refugee crisis, to help women's education around the
Mhm.
world. So, what would you say is something that people can do that aren't in the community to help it?
I think the first thing that we all have to do is to spread awareness,
Okay.
because indeed, like misunderstandings between countries, between communities, and especially about refugees, there are a lot of negative perceptions about who they are, about their backgrounds. Sometimes there is a fear about the refugee. Like some people think, okay, I want to help, but I hear in the media like these refugees are dangerous. These
Yeah.
refugees are coming like sometimes to steal our opportunities, to
Right.
make our life worse. And when media like shows this negative image about the refugees, some people will have fear. Sometimes I
Mhm.
cannot blame them. But what I want everybody to do is like to hear from refugees, not to hear about them, because there is a huge difference if we just hear in the media or just believe anything that we hear about refugees or those people who live in the conflicts. Then we will have this misunderstanding. So if we try to seek the truth,
Mhm.
if we try just to have enough awareness, get knowledge, read about refugees, know refugees, and know what they have gone through, that forced them actually to live in refugee camps, and
Yeah.
that forced them to seek refuge in globally, like in countries in Europe, in Canada, also in the US and elsewhere. So I think this is the first step, and then we move to like other steps where we can maybe start campaigns to fundraising.
Mhm.
We could also push our governments indeed to welcome more refugees,
Right.
and also the governments to start themselves, like as a government, to start to give awareness about refugees and what's going on around the world. And these kind of things I think we could start with. But I think once you start with small activities, it can grow and grow, and
Yeah.
after then we can really have a greater impact, and this could be extended like globally. You might start a movement in Canada, but then it could be everywhere. Especially now we live in this era where we have technology, we have the social media, the
Connect.
power of internet, where we could be connect with many people around the world. We can use our social media indeed to promote human rights,
Mhm.
especially education. Many things, yeah, really we could do.
Yeah, amazing. I think it's a beautiful thing when you said that we should not hear about refugees, but we should hear from refugees. You know, and
Yes,
yeah, I heard that. I was like, yeah, go right to the source and have those
yes,
conversations, and then you really get the truth. You know, you get what their
indeed, yes.
actual day-to-day experiences really are, or what they look like.
Because media, doesn't tell the truth always. And sometimes the media, not only we ask media just to show the truth, sometimes they show the opposite, image, like, it is something untrue, it is something false about, they try to promote it.
Mm.
And sometimes, even if, like, some media, I don't ask them, to talk about me in a good way, but at least I don't want them to show me like as a bad person when
Yeah,
I am not.
right,
If
right.
there is something bad like refugees are doing, they could do so, but they shouldn't generalize. I don't say all refugees are amazing people. No, that's not true.
Right.
Even refugees or not refugees, like, you could find the good ones and bad ones everywhere you go. So
Yeah, just
we
like
shouldn't
everyone
make
else.
generalization.
Yeah, yeah. So, how was your transition from Syria to the UK? Did you notice a lot of differences? Was it scary? Like, how was that experience?
That's a great question, and it's not easy to answer, but I think a huge difference. It is completely different to live in Syria and to live in the United Kingdom. But I had many transitions, to be honest. Like, first, I lived in Syria before the war, and then in Syria itself, I had a different experience when the war started. It has become indeed like a completely different, experience. And then living in two refugee camps in Jordan. This is also to start a new life from zero. From nothing, you have to build a new life. So wherever I went, I had to start like to make new friends, to make new neighbors. To build. Your life, to
Yeah,
start from nothing to live your life in camps, then in the UK. But the UK, I think it was the like the most different one in
yeah,
terms of lifestyle, of course, in terms of language. Not only the language, I remember when we first came to the UK, I live in Newcastle, so they have a very difficult accent. It's called Geordie accent. You can search about it. It is really, really tough. And I learned English before coming to the United Kingdom, but I think because the accent was different, I thought like when I was talking to students at the school and people here in the streets, like I thought they speak different language because it was really, really tough.
right.
But it was funny also because even the British themselves, they think Newcastle accent is really, really tough for them. And
Yeah,
it is their mother language. Also, in terms of the weather, it was really challenging to live in a cold country.
yeah,
At the time, I have come from like a country which is, has a moderate weather, or we could say like hot weather.
yeah, yeah.
So this is one of the challenges. Also, to understand the culture, also for the people in the country to understand you. So it was challenging too. Sometimes not only you have to understand what's going on around you in this new country, but also, to think about what other people think about you.
So, what would you say was the hardest part about that transition?
The time we fled Syria, like we don't have anything similar like as it was before, because, for example, we left behind everything, our friends, our like families, extended family that's still there. I think also the education system was a bit different in the UK, but we managed to get it step by step. So I did my GCSE, then A levels, and then university. So now I finished my second year at university, and like in October I will start my third and last year.
Congratulations. I know a
Thank
lot
you
of
so much.
people have a lot of difficulty with change, and it's just so inspiring to hear you go through these, just adapting to all these crazy new environments all the time and come out with so much strength and be able to, spread all of your awareness and inspiration to everybody. It's
Thank
it's
you.
really like touching me to hear about. because, you know, people in my community, they have to change schools and it's like a huge deal for them, you know, but you're
Yeah.
thinking huge, like just on such a global scale. So thank you so much
Yes.
for speaking to that.
Yes, you are, absolutely right. Because sometimes when you are under these situations, it is easier to give up. It
Yeah,
is easier to give excuse and justification to yourself to fail. But
yeah,
I think, the life, it is a challenge. It is a challenge between you and life,
yeah,
because there is somebody has to win, you or this life. So I think even the difficult circumstances that faces us in life, it could,
yeah,
but at the same time it can empower you and makes you a better person. So for me, I look to my challenges from a different perspective. I looked to those challenges from a positive angle,
mhm,
and I thought to face those challenges, I thought I have to be stronger than what I have gone through, and I don't allow these circumstances to be stronger than me. And when you don't accept this fact, and you don't accept like these challenges to beat you, honestly, you could be stronger than them all, and you can manage and get what you want.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, every challenge is really a choice, right? You can choose
Yes,
to be
definitely.
defeated, or you can overcome it. So what is one thing about the refugee crisis that you wished garnered more attention? Because we hear a lot about, you know, depleted resources and some about the lives of refugees. What would you say something in your experience you're like, I wish people knew more about this?
I think I want everybody to know about the resilience that refugees have,
Right.
because sometimes, as you said, we think, okay, we have to provide them with resources, like, with food, with tents, with the safe, like, home, with safe, like, camp, but they don't, like, pay attention more to the power that refugees have, the dreams that they still hold, like, they are like everybody in the world. They have dreams, they have goals, they want to do something different, they want to do something remarkable.
Yeah.
And I think we have to pay more attention to these kind of things, to these adjectives that makes refugees unique people too, like, they have the power to change their situation. They are able to. So if we trust them, not only to make like a pre-judgment about who they are, and to just underestimate them, because once we do that, we really can limit their dreams, we can limit their imagination. So we have to encourage them to believe in what they can do, to believe they are strong enough to change their difficult circumstances. So they are not only seeking help from us, or from organizations, or from the international community. They could do so themselves, if we provide them with education, if we provide them with the with our shared humanity,
Yeah.
like if
Yeah.
we consider them as a normal people. Because unfortunately, some people think, okay, refugees are different, but
Mm.
the only difference is their circumstances, and that's the only difference.
Yeah, and you've done something amazing because, you know, I at least from my perspective on the media, you hear giving a lot of finite resources, but you're giving an infinite resource of education and empowerment, which is something that you don't hear about as often. And when people are hearing about refugees or people from
Yes,
different places in the world, there's a disconnect. You know, we don't
yes,
think, oh, they're
true.
human beings and they have dreams and ambitions. You know, we just think,
Mhm.
oh, okay, we have to help them and give them resources, or you just have a different opinion on them, and
Yes, that's absolutely right.
yeah, yeah. So just hearing about how these people are in a circumstance where they have to be resilient, they have to be strong, you
Yes,
know,
definitely.
and giving them that respect. So yeah, amazing. So how can people around the world, I think we talked about how they can help the refugee crisis. You said awareness and donations. How can they help young women in those communities that don't have opportunities of education?
It depends, honestly, because young women, or even like young people in general, they need to make connections between each other. So sometimes it is not only to search, or just to spread a little of awareness, because we can gather information, but it couldn't be enough. So I think you find role models from refugees, young women in refugee camps,
Mhm.
and try to show it to people and young women and elsewhere.
Yeah,
And I hope, like, in the future, it could be like a connection between refugees, young women in, like, in camps, and young women, like, we could say in Canada or in Europe and everywhere, can like connect with each other using, social media, using the digital resources we have to talk to each other, to share, and exchange ideas and thoughts. I think that would be amazing, because not only, to make a search and, find a website, talks positively about refugees, that would be great. But I think we need real stories, and people actually really listen to real stories. And when they hear their successful life, when they hear their resilience, they get really excited to help. And I think by this way, that would be amazing. And I hope this could happen. I don't think so, like it has been done before in the camps. But if this happens, can help a lot. And when young people can work together, they can make amazing things and find solutions for the share the challenges that face us globally, not only in camps or maybe in a specific region in the world.
For sure. This is kind of a side question, but is there internet and technology in the camp you were in, or in general in refugee camps?
So that's a great question. Since when I was actually in refugee camps, there was no internet access. There was no electricity even at all. So that was one of the challenges that we had. It is really sometimes disappointing to be disconnected from the world and you don't know what's going on. So that was like something really annoying for many refugees. And now, but this is after actually I left the camps. Now they have electricity, they have access to internet, I think. But I don't know about the rest of camps in the world. I'm talking about Jordan because, I had experience and I hear, like, I follow up.
Right. How has the pandemic changed the lives of refugees at the moment? Is there more need for medical resources? Is there a large impact on refugees?
That's, a fundamental question, especially now, because the refugees already have challenges, and the pandemic has added more difficulties for their lives. In many places, refugees, they don't have access to medical help. We know actually camps inside Syria, they don't have, enough doctors. They don't have any even basic resources that can protect them from coronavirus. Also, in many situations, refugees, they don't have access to internet. So even if they were going to school before the pandemic, they couldn't catch up with their learning online like we do here in the UK, where also in many parts of the world where they transformed into digital learning, into remote learning. So this is not the same case for refugees. And even digital learning, it becomes an obstacle to us. How could we imagine it for those who don't have access to it?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for bringing attention to these issues. I know that the community that I've built with my company online, we don't hear about this stuff often. We don't hear directly from the source. We hear some snippets of media. So what you're doing is just like fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's brought so much, like even for me, I'm listening to this and I'm like, wow, really, that's crazy. So
and I would like to thank you also for what you do, because what you do, it complete what I do, and what you do, I complete what you do too. So we have actually a shared message, so I really appreciate focusing on refugees, focusing on girls education. I think, if people follow what you do and do great stuff like you, try, to seek the truth, know more, do as much as they can, I think it is wonderful. And, of course we need more young people like you, because, me is one part of what other young people are doing. So I think our collective work is what we need. It is the time we can make a real difference, indeed. So one hand cannot clap, we say in Arabic, you have to use your two hands to clap.
All right, so I'm going to move on to some more lighthearted questions.
Okay.
How was it becoming a Goodwill Ambassador for UNICEF?
Yeah, it was really great. I felt so proud to become a global ambassador to UNICEF. And most importantly, I was so proud because I have become a voice for millions out there who are voiceless, or maybe they don't have an opportunity to raise their voices. So I am so proud to use my voice, to use my story to highlight their challenges. Because indeed, when I talk about myself, when I talk about Muzoon's story, it is not only about my story, it is indeed about many stories, about many stories that we don't hear about. And it is a story of many who have gone through the same challenges that I have gone through, about many challenges that they face even harder than mine. I want to use my activism work as much as I can to highlight what they suffer, and I really want to make a difference. I don't want only to be like an ambassador by name. I don't, want people to praise me just, because achieving this and this. Because when you get a title or when you become popular more and more, your responsibility becomes even more. Because I think any level you reach in your life, it is a new responsibility. It is not something you have to, just be proud of. That's true. You must be proud of.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. You don't just have to be proud of yourself and that's it. I feel UNICEF is a great organization which works amazingly to help children, to help education, which is something I work for. And they are doing such an amazing work, and they feel so proud, like I work with them, and I use my voice with such a great organization like UNICEF.
Yeah, amazing. So I read online that when you left Syria, you took many books with you. That was like a priority.
Yes.
You had a lot of books. So what would you say is one book that transformed like your view on the world, or was just really essential to your life journey?
All the books that I have carried, they were my school books.
Yeah.
So I had to study them all for my exams, because I was in a grade 9 in Syria, and it was such a very important year, as we have actually to pass national exams, which is done in the whole Syria. When my dad told us, to carry the most important thing, I thought about my school books, because I really didn't think about anything else could be more important than my books.
Right.
And I was so surprised, because that time it was a very spontaneous moment. I didn't, know I will be an activist, or I didn't know, I will mention this in global media, and I will be asked about this. And also has shown me I am indeed I believe in education, and indeed education is something so true to me. I am not, lying, and I am not just talking. I am not only mentioning stuff to other people that I don't believe in it myself. It's indeed, it's just because it comes from my heart, and it is something I do it fully from my heart. And I was surprised that nobody has carried their school books in their journey as refugees. And then I heard from UNHCR. They told me you are the only person that we knew who carried. It didn't happen before. We didn't hear about it, and they always use it, as a kind of hope for refugees. And that's it. And now I feel, it's such a very great moment, and I could be proud of it.
Totally. It's always been a part of you, right? Even before you knew it was going to be this global mission.
That's right.
All right. Well, that is all my questions. Thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. This was just a fantastic experience, and I hope we can connect more in the future.
Definitely. And it's such a great pleasure to connect you. It is the simplest thing that I could do for people like you who do an amazing work. And of course, it is not an end. We could, and if there is anything I could do, I am more than happy to do so. And also, it would be amazing to hear and to follow up about what you do too. So it would be so great to hear what you have been up to.
Thank you so much. All right. Well,
have a great time.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. I'll speak to you soon.
Bye. Thank you so much.